Hello, explosive news. The statue of Lady Liberty in New York has officially fallen today. It's fallen. And I don't mean literally, I mean figuratively. I tagged Tucker Carlson, Bloc leader Yves Blanchette, and of course CAC party leader Premier Francois Legault. You see, folks, 40,000 American migrants are now being bused and shuttled to Roxham Road. I want to explain something for every American and every Canadian in first person about the history of Quebec and the United States of America that a lot of people don't know. Don't know. There are two states I've talked about, one state and one province in all of North America on banking. We talk about central banking. There are one state in the U.S. and one province who are right next door to each other, and they have their own central financial institutions. Both are unconstitutional. They're unconstitutional. They were done. They were done because of time of crown colonialism and the British Empire. And those two states, North Dakota and Alberta, did that. They did that. They have their own crown corporate banks, central banks of a state and of a province. They did that. Likewise, there is only one province in all of North America. There isn't a 50-state or another province or territory in all of Canada that have centralized immigration policy. What do I mean by that? Quebec deals with its own immigration. And because of that, New York now getting flooded with migrants, border crossers, in treaty, illegally crossed into the U.S., flooded to New York to seek asylum. And New York says, for 40,000 of you, we're just going to ship you to Quebec. See, Justin Trudeau told President Joe Biden, listen, we have a province who has its own immigration policy. The treaty you signed with us federally doesn't apply to them. You can take those migrants who under treaty crossed your border, are your problem, and you can now ship them to Quebec, where they will be overrun. You see, Justin Trudeau's real pissed off right now. Real pissed off. Yves Blanchette went ahead and backed legal firearms owners' property rights, obviously for Quebecois, but it has a ripple effect in seats, and they shut down half of the gun grab. We still have a mass amount of guns being grabbed, absolutely all our handguns. I'm not stoked about any of it, but folks, Justin Trudeau angry with Yves Blanchette, and even more, he's angry with Francois Legault, who promises the strength of a state by defying the British Empire, foregoing the oath of rights or the oath of allegiance to King Charles III. He's now made it the oath of the Quebecois that any provincial MNA, which is an MLA, member of the Legislative Assembly, the equivalent of state House representatives in all 50 states, he said, you guys won't swear an oath to King Charles III if you don't want to. You can swear an oath to your constituents, the people of Quebec. It's a part one. Trudeau has lost it. Do you know who else has lost it? Pierre Poilievre. And we're going to get into the attack on Alberta right quick, and we're going to go through that. But you see now a massive portion of illegals, which now represents more than 10% of the legal immigration that's explosive is now going to be forced upon Quebec. Quebec has its own immigration. It signed only the Bill of Rights, 1960. It has language protection for French. And they set up their immigration that no, if you don't speak French, you won't get preferred immigration status. Trudeau's angry about that. Trudeau says, you know what? You will take all the immigrants I deem for the rest of Canada. We will force on you. And we will do it with Joe Biden. We will get Joe Biden to do it. And New York says, we'll push them on you. Folks, if you don't know the history, 1775 to 1783 was the War of Independence. And the French, who had lost Quebec, it became British Quebec, all the way down to Louisiana. They had lost in the prior 7-year war of Britain and France. Britain took all of North America, and the 13 colonies had had enough because there was a dominant colonial force. And they said, we are going to stop you, which led to the French joining the War of Independence in 1778. The Statue of Liberty represents freedom for the American people. We the people. Given and donated by the French. And now today, against the same French citizens, who at least in the province of Quebec control their immigration, against the Central Crown of Canada, which Joe Biden loves more than anything. He loves it more than Lady Liberty. The mayor of New York sent those migrants packing. 40,000, a massive influx on the Quebecois at Roxham Road. Why not any other border crossings? Oh yeah, because there's a treaty in place. Migrant arrivals in the host country. But that treaty doesn't apply to Quebec. So now Canada will be forced to take those migrants. Quebec will be forced to process them, requiring many more monies in the billions of dollars a year. And guess where you get that money from? Oh yeah, like services for immigration. Processing all those illegals will require Alberta's recalculation of the equalization formula. However much money Quebec must spend to process New York's illegals, Alberta, you're going to pay. You're going to pay. Who do you thank for this? Well, that would be Pierre Poilievre. He voted for it under Harper. He voted in Privy Council for the recalculation of the equalization formula. You see, Alberta, it's your problem too. It's your financial problem, and also all Canadians. Besides Alberta being on the hook financially, remember, these processed 40,000 migrants who don't speak French, who don't have any French background, will become your illegals. Because Canada doesn't have the same immigration standards as does the province of Quebec. Quebec is likely to have to build a military force at the Roxham Road border crossing at absolutely the expense in the largest portion of Alberta. Do you find that funny yet, Albertans? You're going to pay for a militia, a security detail at the border of Quebec. That's what's going to happen. It's called equalization. If they have to process all of USA's illegals, you're going to have to pay for it. And you're also still going to get those illegals enter into your provinces anyway. Because if they don't speak French and they're not on the preferred immigrant program, they will be shipped throughout Canada. Yeah. So Alberta pays. You won't hear Daniel Smith stand up and talk about this. You'll definitely not hear Pierre Poilievre stand up and talk about this. And you're definitely not going to hear Justin Trudeau stand up and talk about it. because they're in bed with Joe Biden, who's in bed with the Crown, as Canada always has been. Joe Biden internationally wants to be king in international narrative. That's what he wants. He wants Americans outside of America to be global subjects. He can't do it domestically, but he can do it globally, internationally. And he already has. I've published for everybody the New Atlantic Charter 2021. Takes away all kinds of enforcement of the P5 in the world today. And it enshrines the Crown. It takes the Statue of Liberty in New York and knocks it over. It totally does. It makes it some statue of a long time ago that makes no sense today. It is contrary to what the current president of the United States stands for and what he's actually doing internationally. Americans probably have no idea about any of this. Why would they? They don't have an immigration system anywhere in their country like Quebec does. And it's a small little region that the Americans are now pounding on. And ironically, it's New York that's doing it to Quebec, who was gifted the Statue of Liberty, where the French helped the Americans gain their independence from colonial Britain, which led America to toss out all the southern colonials, Mexico, Spain, Denmark, on and on and on, Portugal. It's an amazing history of the United States, almost as amazing as Africa itself. Africa took on 7 colonials. USA fought 5. People run the United States down in slavery. North and South, they had a civil war. That was all to expel colonialism and create the 50 states we have today. And now that's all under threat, once again, by the return of a crown colonial. Which crown colonial? Well, that would be the royal family, Great Britain. And UK is slowly moving into that pole position, led by none other than Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States of America. Americans don't realize it. Republicans should be talking about it. I hope they do. Maybe someone in Tucker Carlson's corner will watch this video and they will start looking at this as it really is, as history really is. People in Canada are trained to hate the Quebecois. Well, newsflash, folks, we have abused the French too, especially the Acadians. We have committed a genocide on them. I don't often talk about that. All in relation to the War of Independence, the 13 colonies, and every aftermath, including the War of 1812. The French have always been abused in this country because Canada is a crown colonial system that targets people they deem savages at any point. They've had many. Of course, the First Peoples are still and the very longest running in the entire world. Likely the entire world. There may be others that can argue. And of course, those are our twin sisters, New Zealand, Australia. But the reality is it's sick, it's wrong, and people should be afraid. And people should understand the truth. They should understand in Alberta, at least in Alberta. Quebec is learning this lesson. They're moving much faster. They did part 1 of the Constitutional Conventions Act I wrote. They did part 1. I hope that what's happening now as we go forward is what can you do about it? Enact the rest of the Constitutional Conventions Act. Repeal the Executive Powers Act of Quebec. Do it. Yves Blanchette should support Francois Legault, CAQ Party, and Premier of Quebec. He should. They should set up a militia or at least a border guard security detail, massive, put it under police, get it done. Sadly, Alberta, yes, you'll have to pay, but you were going to pay anyway, one way or another. Do you want to get out of all that? Do you want to support your own borders? Enable the Constitutional Conventions Act of Alberta. Repeal the Executive Powers Act in Alberta. 1905. Do it. It's one of the 13 amendments. Do it. Do it now. Stop electing Central Crown personnel attached to federal parties. Conservative, Liberal, NDP, they're all hijacked, overtaken. They're central federal parties. And now they operate in provinces. You can't have that in a true federalism. You can't. Not with our Constitution. All you're going to get is the Central Crown, which omits you. They don't want you. They want to destroy you. If you don't understand this, you should. You've seen it over and over again. Doesn't matter. Conservative, Liberal, doesn't matter. Very few times in Alberta's history have they ever elected someone to office that represents the regional crown. Danielle Smith's a great liar, but she sold out to the federal crown a long time ago. I can show you clearly Danielle Smith is sponsored and paid for by the CPC. They sponsored her to become Premier of Alberta. Why? Because she is one with the Central Crown. It all began, absolutely, with the gun grab so many years ago in her home riding. And you can look at it. I did a good video on that whole history. No one can deny it. All the players are there, including Danielle Smith, all federal, all corrupt, all of the Central Crown. She floor crossed just months after that. What more do you need? She was a regional party. She floor crossed to a federal Central Crown party. What does that tell you? If people haven't woken up that you've just replaced Jason Kenney with Jason Kenney 2, a federal loyalist, a Central Crown lover, which spells disaster for Alberta. Right now, the war is on Quebec. The war is on Quebec. The destruction of Quebec, and who else? Alberta. Largely. Confederation today, that is the war. And Trudeau, out of spite, and with full support of Pierre Poilievre, who's not going to speak to you about this, has hijacked Joe Biden's illegal immigrants and had them transferred to Quebec for processing. A whopping amount, 40,000, is equivalent to 400,000 to the USA's southern border. That's a mass amount of people. That's brutal. And look at the armed forces they have there, the fence they have there. Roxham Road is outside the treaty. And Quebec is in big, big trouble. And so is Alberta, as explained here. Statue of Liberty, New York. Oh, look at the history of that. That gift from France. That's been toppled, literally. No, figuratively. But it's true. It's true. And this is the first assault on liberty and the self-determination and self-government potential of any peoples of Canada. We're losing at a record pace. A record pace. People got to wake up. Constitutional Conventions Act of Alberta or any province or territory. All of the provisions are there for any province or any territory to take your powers back. At least take all that's promised to a province or territory. Any premier can do it for and by the people. If Quebec leads off on this latest assault, they respond with that act, they put that into practice for the Quebecois, it will spread like wildfire right across Canada and all the territories. You will transform Canada. And it won't be long before when you hit the mark of 7 that the federal government is toppled too. And the central system will have to be redesigned, dismembered and redesigned. All the people of Canada, all the First Peoples of Canada would definitely get on board with that. And nobody can accuse us of communism because we start with property rights for you, the people. That's just one of many, but it's a major one. Communism, there are no property rights. So when we talk about settling 90% of the Crown land in Canada, we are the absolute 110% polar opposite of communism. And any notion of communism is a lie. That's a crown lie. The crown is more like communism. It's an older version of communism. People say we're getting more communist every day. That's called crown colonial. And folks, when we only have 9% of our country made available to us, and it's 2.2 times less than communist China, I'm sorry, but who's the real commie here? It's us. It's a worse version of communism, the illusion of democracy. And don't kid yourself. There's a war on federalism. And that war is 40,000 immigrants being bused to Quebec. And people get angry, but think about your province. Do you want to remain in a federalist system where you still have the power of your province, your culture, your rights as a people underneath the central government? You give that away, and you will end up like a Ukraine and so many European countries that all of our ancestors ran from. We ran as fast as we could from those systems. The New World, the promise of something better. I don't want to be a subject. I don't want to be a peasant on a lord and baron's land. A slave. A slave. That's what they're trying to bring back. That's what they want to do to us. Call it state farms, state corporations. It's the same thing as the lords and barons. Entitled persons of first class over you, the second and third class. We've got to end it. We've got to end the notion of a savage to make the subjects feel better. We have to end that. We have to fight the evil. And that's what our party's going to do. Path forward for Quebec and all provinces and territories. The Constitutional Conventions Act, written with every amendment and version for every territory and province. It's there. It's there for everybody. Fully published. I published it for all. That's my video. Share, share, share. It's super important. People need to know. Thanks. God bless. Have a great day.